All right, let's talk about Codeforces. If you're trying to climb those ranks, you know it can feel, well, a little chaotic. So today we're going to cut right through all that noise. We've taken advice from some of the best competitive programmers out there and boiled it down into one clear, step-by-step roadmap to get you from newbie all the way to expert. But first, a quick reality check. Did you know that a whopping 90% of competitive programmers in India on Codeforces get stuck below the specialist rank? I mean, that's the big wall that trips almost everyone up. But here's the thing. It is absolutely breakable. That doesn't have to be your story. And if you need proof that it's possible, just look at Shayan's journey, newbie to expert, in 3 months. Now, that's not some kind of magic trick. That's what happens when you have a focused, intelligent strategy. And that's exactly what we've distilled for you today. Okay, here's our game plan. We're breaking it down into 4 key stages: the newbie foundation, the pupil's climb, the specialist's leap, and then we'll wrap up with the unifying mindset that holds it all together. First up, the newbie foundation. Seriously, think of this as building your base camp. If you get this part wrong, the whole climb gets a lot harder. Now, what's really fascinating here is what you shouldn't be learning. So many beginners see these shiny, advanced topics like dynamic programming or graphs and dive right in. It's a trap. At this stage, your one and only mission is to master the absolute basics. Know your programming language inside and out, get a feel for your code's efficiency, lock down some basic math, and really get comfortable with recursion. So the whole mindset here is tools, not towers. Forget about building complex algorithmic masterpieces for now. The real question is, can you take a simple idea and just write clean, bug-free code for it? That raw implementation skill is everything. And maybe just as important is being resilient. You're going to see a lot of wrong answer verdicts, and learning to just push through that frustration, that's the key to get into the next level. Okay, so once that foundation is rock solid, you can start the real ascent. And that brings us to section 2, the pupil's climb. This is where we finally start layering in some of those core algorithmic ideas. This is your first real algorithmic toolkit. You're finally moving beyond just brute force. You'll learn things like binary search, especially that super powerful search on the answer technique. You'll start spotting hidden patterns with number theory and making your code way faster with prefix sums. This is the stage where you really start thinking smarter, not just coding harder. And right around now, you have to adopt one absolutely critical habit: upsolving. What this means is, after every single contest, you go back and you solve the problems you couldn't get during the time limit. This is not optional. It is probably the most powerful learning tool you have. It's how you find your weaknesses and you systematically turn them into strengths. And that brings us to the specialist's leap. Remember that 90% number? This is the range where they all get stuck. Breaking through this barrier is what separates the casual coders from the true competitive programmers. This is the big one. So what's the secret? Well, this slide says it all. When Shayan was asked what the single most important topic was for reaching expert, his answer was simple: dynamic programming, and, you guessed it, more dynamic programming. You just can't get to expert without it. Period. The name of the game here is volume, especially with DP. You should be aiming to solve 50 to 100 DP problems until the patterns are burned into your brain. The other topics here, two-pointers, graphs, trees, they all share a common theme. They're about managing complex states and relationships in data. This is the big intellectual jump you have to make to unlock those harder problems. Okay, so we know the topics, but the real question is, how do you actually practice them in a way that works? How do you target that very specific difficulty level that separates a specialist from an expert? And here is a just beautiful, super specific technique from Aniket More. He says you should go and systematically solve problem C from the last 50 or 60 Division 2 contests. Now, why is this so brilliant? Because it takes all the guesswork out of it. You are consistently practicing at the exact difficulty, that 1400 to 1700 rating sweet spot that you need to master. It forces you to learn exactly what you need to know. So we've covered the topics for each level. But what's the mindset? What's the philosophy that fuels this entire climb? Well, these are the principles that apply no matter what your rating is. Just look at this quote from Alireza Kaviani, a top-tier competitor. He didn't miss a single contest for 2 straight years. The lesson here is crystal clear. You have to participate relentlessly. Don't wait until you feel good enough. The contest is where you learn, where you test your skills under pressure, and honestly, where you find your motivation. So what happens when you get stuck on a problem? We've all been there. The key is to not just immediately look at the solution. Here's the process. Keep thinking as long as you have new ideas, any ideas at all. Once you're truly stuck, read just the first line of the editorial for a tiny hint, then go back to thinking. Only read the full solution as a last resort. And when you do, your goal isn't just to pass the problem, it's to truly learn the technique for next time. So, if you boil it all down, the core philosophy isn't about sitting and reading theory books. It's about high-volume, targeted problem solving. That means aiming for quantity, like Shayan's 10 problems a day, but keeping them right in that sweet spot, just a little above your current reading. You learn new algorithms when a problem forces you to, because that's the best way to make them stick. And there you have it, your entire journey on one slide. Newbies master the fundamentals. Pupils build their first real algorithmic toolkit, and specialists break through that massive barrier with a heavy dose of dynamic programming. This is your map. Now you know exactly what to focus on and when. So, we've laid out the exact path that people like Shayan have used to climb from newbie to expert in months, not years. These strategies work. They're proven. The only real question left is the one on the screen right now. What's your goal and when are you going to achieve it?